Howdy, howdy, folks. Once again, this is Donnie, and I just figured I would offer up some of my own comments here about the latest drama that's coming out of Red Hat. And in case you haven't heard, it just involves the fact that the Red Hat company has decided to restrict access to its source code. And by the way, before I get too far into this, I need to offer up my standard disclaimer here for whenever I show you articles. And that's the fact that I will have links to these articles in the video description below, because my intention for showing these articles is never to steal views from the content creators, but just to bring them to your attention so that you can go look at them yourselves if you want to, and if you want to, just click on the article to make sure that they get some ad revenue, right? But anyway, what this involves here is a very, very unexpected move that's caused a lot of anger and angst in the Linux community, and that's the fact that they have decided to make it so that only paying Red Hat customers can access the source code to Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Now, they are leaving the public access to CentOS Stream, but that's not the same as Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That's an upstream product from Red Hat Enterprise, which means that it's going to be a lot of experimental stuff, proving ground for stuff, and it's not going to get all the bug fixes and security updates and all that Red Hat Enterprise Linux will get. Now, the problem with that is that it's now going to be very, very difficult, or a little bit more difficult, for the creators of the free of charge Red Hat Enterprise clones to continue business. Now, the two biggest ones, of course, well, actually three big ones. I forgot to pull up Oracle Linux, but that's okay. But the two big ones that most people focus on are really Rocky Linux and Alma Linux. And we see statements here saying that, hey, they're trying to find workarounds, and apparently the Rocky Linux team has already found at least a short-term workaround to try to still be able to get those updates and still be able to get the Red Hat Enterprise source code without violating the licensing restrictions that Red Hat has in place. And they're looking for long-term solutions. And as you can see down here, they say there will be no disruption or change for Rocky Linux users, collaborators, or partners. Okay, that's good. And they say that, they have found a short-term solution. They're looking for a long-term solution. Okay. Alma Linux, same thing, pretty much similar statement here. They're just saying there that, how they get the source code is now being forced to change. And they also have found just a short-term solution and are also working to try to find a long-term solution for it. Okay, so anyway, what is behind all this anyway? Well, it's very, very clear that the Red Hat company is trying to kill off the free of charge Red Hat clones, or at the very least to try to limit their popularity, to try to limit their ability to do business, But I personally think that their long-term solution, their long-term goal is to just completely kill off these free of charge clones, right? I think they look at it as a loss of business for them. They're thinking that, hey, people should not be using our source code free of charge. They should be paying us for this stuff, right? And in fact, back in the middle of 2020, or beginning of 2020, middle of 2020, whenever it was, when Red Hat announced that they were going to discontinue their CentOS distro, they actually stated, I mean, there were actually news articles that quoted Red Hat officials as saying, well, if we're only $1 billion company, we could be a $10 billion company if it weren't for CentOS out there. Wah, wah, wah. You know? And of course, I made fun of that at the time, and I pointed out why that was completely bogus. Because, look, if it weren't for the free of charge Linux distros, the free of charge clones of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, I'm here to tell you, Red Hat would never have become a $1 billion company, right? Because without these free of charge clones, there would never have been any way to provide affordable training or to obtain affordable training to learn Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And this the site I'm showing you right here, I had to go back to the Internet Archive Wayback Machine here to get an older copy of it. And that's because this company's no longer in business. The guy, he was making tons of money. The guy who ran it was making tons of money, but he retired several years ago. Now, I think all he's doing is just doing day trading and riding his mountain bike. You know. But anyway, this is SpiderTools.com, and this was run by a guy named Mike Weber. He was one of my clients many years ago, and this copy of his site here happens to be from the beginning of 2007, which is about the time when I first started up with him, right? And the way I discovered him was, I was looking for, affordable ways to learn Linux, and I just happened to find his site advertised at DistroWatch. And so I signed up for a course. It was a self-paced course, and except that once a week he would call me and call me on the telephone, and he would say, "Hey, you got any questions about all this? Anything you want to talk about?" And it was pretty straightforward course. So I'd say, "Well, yeah, I think I got it right." But the thing is, the only way that this was possible at the reasonable price, and you can see that the price there, 6-week course for $295. Yeah, that's a deal, right? But the only way that he was able to provide this training at a reasonable price was because CentOS was out there for free of charge. And he couldn't put in the training documentation that, this can help you out with learning Red Hat, because he was kind of paranoid about the fact that Red Hat was really, really protective of their trademarks. So he was afraid to actually put the term Red Hat into the documentation. And instead, I think he kind of, if I remember correctly, he kind of in a roundabout way said that this would help you out with a certain major Linux distro or something like that. I forget what. But anyway, the fact was, though, that in private conversation, we could tell people, yes, this is helping you learn Red Hat, because CentOS is Red Hat without the branding. And so anyway, I took the course from him, and then it was self-paced. It was supposed to be 6 weeks. I finished it up in like 1 week. And so he calls me on a Sunday and says, "Hey, Donnie, you seem kind of motivated with this. How would you like to work with me?" I said, "Well, Mike, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm just learning Linux myself here. I don't know if I can do that." He said, "Oh, come on, give it a try here." I said, "Oh, okay." So anyway, I started out by writing training documentation for him. And then after a few months, he actually hooked me up with one of his clients, which was a guy who was providing online training for the state of California, as part of the the state of California's employee training program. So yeah, I started out with teaching Linux server administration, and again, using CentOS. And I always told the students, hey, if you want to get into Red Hat, this is the best way, right? Because you got big companies out there running Red Hat Linux. If you want to learn how to use Red Hat, learn how to administer Red Hat, this is the best way to do it. Okay, and again, without CentOS, that would not have been possible because because the only way to get Red Hat at the time, actual Red Hat at the time, was to download a trial copy. And guess what? There was nothing you could do with that trial copy because you couldn't do updates, you couldn't install software, you couldn't do anything with it except just boot it up and look at it and say, yeah, it's nice and pretty. I don't know what the point was in having the trial copy, if they were going to do that. But and then the only other way to get official Red Hat training was to go with an official Red Hat training partner. Now, if you go with an official Red Hat training partner, you're going to be paying out big money, because to become an official Red Hat training partner, you have to pay Red Hat big money. I mean, it's just one of the little secrets there of the business. And so, of course, we were not able to do that. So we used CentOS. Okay, so if Red Hat forces the free of charge Red Hat Enterprise clone makers to go out of business, I mean, I know this is going to sound counterintuitive in a way, but if they force these clone makers to go out of business, they're going to be destroying a very important part of the Red Hat ecosystem. It's like they're going to be shooting themselves in the foot, okay? And the arguments about whether they're allowed to do that, whether they're allowed to restrict access to their source code under the GNU public license, and all that, I mean, it's really kind of a moot point, okay? Because the fact is that, as I said, if they force these clone makers to go out of business, they're shooting themselves in the foot, because they're destroying a very important part of their ecosystem. They're destroying the ability for people to train themselves on Red Hat Enterprise Linux technologies at a reasonable cost. And, if CentOS has not been out there years ago, there's no way, I mean, I'm telling you, there's no frickin' way that Red Hat could have become a billion-dollar company, because nobody would have bothered to try to learn it. They would have gone with something like Debian or Slackware or any number of other community-supported Linux distros that would have been suitable for use in the enterprise. Okay, they would not have gone with Red Hat, because who's going to pay that big money for that training, right? And look, even Microsoft has a better way of doing business here, right? Microsoft, years ago, they had what they called the TechNet Pro subscription service, where you could pay, I think it was like $500 for the first year, then something like $250 a year after that, and you could download their products, whether it be like Windows, well, at the time it was Windows 7, or the current versions of Windows Server, or the Microsoft Office, or Microsoft Exchange, anything. You could download that. All that was included in the subscription. You could use it, to build up your lab, to be able to come up with different solutions, and to use it for writing training documentation, to perform training, whatever, right? Their only restriction was don't share out the ISO images that you download, and don't put these, don't use these images to actually create production type servers, okay? Just use them for your own labs, and use them for your training or whatever, right? But then they discontinued that service, and people were upset about that, right? And including me, because at that time, this guy here at Spider Tools was having me write Nagios documentation. And of course, a major part of dealing with Nagios and teaching Nagios was teaching how to set up the monitoring daemons and services and all on the different types of things that you want to monitor. And that includes Windows servers, right? So this guy was having me write all the documentation for anything that had to do with Windows servers, because I have an MCSE certification for Windows Server 2003. At the time, Windows Server 2008 was current, wasn't that much removed from Windows Server 2003. So yeah, I was still able to write the documentation for setting up the monitoring for Windows Server, and I was using that TechNet Pro subscription service, to create the virtual machines to do that, and it was working great. And they just continued. I said, wait a minute, what's going on here? Well, Microsoft still had a fairly decent solution. They just said, hey, download trial copies of our software. They're fully functional, and use them to create your labs. And the only catch was, they had an expiration date on them, but an official Microsoft representative told me the solution to that. He said, create the virtual machines on a Microsoft Hyper-V server, disable the time synchronization between the Hyper-V and the virtual machine, and it won't expire. I said, okay. But you get a trial copy of Red Hat Enterprise Linux from Red Hat. That's not going to happen because it's not fully functional. It won't do anything. Okay? So anyway, a few years ago now, Red Hat did start offering a free of charge developer subscription. And there we go, right there. And they started off by saying, okay, if you're a Linux developer, you can create a free of charge account with us, a free of charge developer subscription account for us, and that will entitle you to do one installation of from the installer image that you download, right? Well, that wasn't really enough, right? So after the fiasco that they created back in 2020, when they discontinued CentOS, they said, okay, we'll kind of throw a bone to you here. We'll allow you to install your developer's account ISO on up to 16 different machines, make 16 different installations. Well, it's still not all that much. It's still pretty much useless, in my opinion, because if you're a developer or if you're a trainer, if you're writing documentation, in my case these days, I don't do the training anymore, but I write books, and so because of that, I'm going to be creating virtual machines all the time, right? And with only 16 installations allowed, that's not going to do me. I'm going to run out of that in no time. And because of that, I use either Alma Linux or Rocky Linux when I need to write about any type of Red Hat type technologies, right? Because I can I can, I can create either Alma Linux virtual machines or Rocky Linux virtual machines all day long, create as many as I want, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. I mean, they're going to be all going to be fully functional, and they're all going to work great. Okay, now this is an interesting article here. It says Red Hat boosts free developer subscription to 240 systems, and if you read the article there, yeah, that was you're kind of celebrating that, right? And yeah, sounds like good news, right? And it does say that he never, or that they never really officially announced it. But if you look at the developer portal there, it says available 240 entitlements there, right? It sounds good, right? Unfortunately, you get down here to the updated June 27th, which was like, what, 2 days ago? As we have just been informed, it is a bug in the Red Hat customer portal, and 240 does not correspond to the actual number of allowed systems to use, which remains 16. Oh, Red Hat, what are we going to do with you? My goodness. So anyway, yeah, as I said, with only 16 allowed installations, it's useless. I mean, the only way to get around that is to create virtual machines every time you want to do anything. Just create a snapshot of the virtual machine, and then when you're done doing what you need to do, just roll back. Okay, just roll back, and that way you can at least keep one virtual machine going for the long term. Okay. Also, I just want to look over here. Red Hat earnings. Okay. Red Hat earnings for 2022, which of course is the last year for which we have the full year sales statistics here, and we see there, IBM beats revenue expectations. Red Hat sales surged 17%. Okay, well, if you look at that there, let's see if we have any details here. And yeah, IBM on Monday announced the company's second quarter 2022 earnings results, which are summarized by the company's chairman, yada yada, and they reported that the company's revenue was $15.5 billion, increase of 9%, and the company's focus on hybrid cloud through Red Hat is playing a role in that growth. Okay. And of course you can read on down there and get the details, right? But anyway, so it would appear that in reality, Red Hat's not really hurting. I mean, you wouldn't think, according to that. But on the other hand, their actions lately have kind of indicated, I don't know, maybe otherwise. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going on with them, okay? Because a few months ago now, actually, in April of 2023, Red Hat laid off a whole bunch of people, including all of the staff that maintained their opensource.com website, and now they're doing this, trying to drive the Rocky Linux and Alma Linux out of business. Okay, and besides the fact that they're destroying their own ecosystem by destroying the ability for people to obtain free of charge or self-training or low-cost training from other providers, I don't really see that they're going to increase their sales all that much, and that's because people who aren't dedicated to the Red Hat ecosystem, if they can't get to Rocky Linux or Alma Linux, they're going to switch over. And I've already seen other YouTubers saying that, yeah, a lot of people are already dumping Rocky and Alma and switching over to Debian. Okay, I don't know how widespread that phenomenon is right now, but at least apparently some people are doing that. Now there is one case though, and I forgot to bring this up, but anyway, let's do this here. There is a scenario which might force the users of Rocky Linux and Alma Linux to actually switch over to a paid Red Hat subscription, and if Rocky and Alma go away, and that's for people or companies and organizations that need to meet the regulatory requirements of certain regulatory bodies. And by that I mean like PCI DSS, which stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. And so anybody who accepts credit cards, anybody who does financial transactions, so financial transactions on their site, is subject to PCI DSS. Also, you also have the you also have anybody who deals with government agencies. Government agencies are going to require you to meet certain standards. And the best way to do that is to use something called OpenScape, okay? And what OpenScape is just a way to apply some sort of security profile to your Linux server, and that profile then will automatically remediate your server and make it come into compliance with whatever type of regulatory body you're dealing with, right? So, so if you have if you have some sort of a financial transaction website, you can install OpenScape and apply the profile for PCI DSS, and it will automatically make that server come into compliance with the PCI DSS standards. Same thing for if you're a government agency. There's something called STIG, and I forget what it stands for, STIG. I forget what it stands for, but anyway, the STIG is a set of regulations that apply to anybody who does business with the U.S. government, and lots of other ones as well. Also ones for HIPAA. If you're working in the medical industry in the United States, you need to apply with HIPAA standards. That stands for health insurance portability. I forget. But anyway, it has to do with the privacy standards and confidentiality standards that apply to any medical professionals, right? So if you're setting up a site that deals with the medical industry, then you are subject to HIPAA standards, and so you can apply a SCAP profile for that, and it's really great. I mean, lots of other ones as well, right? Lots of other profiles for specific purposes. Other governments around the world have their own profiles, and just a wide range of options there, providing you're dealing with some sort of a Red Hat type Linux distro. If you're dealing with Ubuntu or SUSE, there's a limited number of profiles that you can apply, but you don't have the wide range of options that you have when you're dealing with the Red Hat enterprise Linux type Linux distros. And so if you're dealing with Ubuntu or SUSE, there's a really, really good chance that you're not going to have the profile that you need to apply for your business. Okay? And so, and also, the Red Hat Linux distros are the only ones that allow you to apply a SCAP profile as you are installing the operating system. So that makes it really, really handy, and it just really makes it a lot easier, a a lot less complex to bring your Linux servers into compliance with these various regulatory bodies. And if you're dealing with Ubuntu or SUSE, again, the you're going to be limited in your choices of SCAP profiles, and you're also not going to be able to install them as you install the operating system. So you're going to have to install the operating system first and then jump through the hoops to install OpenScape and then apply your profile. Okay, but anyway, yeah, that's that's pretty much it, really, I think. But and again, okay, Red Hat, they're apparently, I did not think that the GNU public license, which covers all Linux distros, would allow them to do what they're doing, but apparently it does. Apparently the only stipulation that they have to meet under this GNU public license is to make the source code available to the paying customers. Apparently they don't have to make it available to the public at large as people thought. But anyway, hopefully Rocky and Alma will be able to get things going again and find some long-term solutions, and hopefully Red Hat will not actually try to kill them off altogether, because that's going to be a big blow to the Linux community. And yeah, I fully get that they want to make money, but this sometimes, if you want to make money, you gotta be willing to give some stuff away for free, all right? And it's certainly the case here, as I have pointed out. Anyway, with that being said, let's have a word from my sponsor. And my sponsor for today is me and my books, Mastering Linux Security and Hardening. If you are a Linux administrator and you want to learn all about how to make your Linux servers as secure as they can possibly be, then hey, you check this book out. And getting lots and lots of 5-star reviews on Amazon, so you know it's got to be good, right? But yeah, we got it updated here with the 3rd edition up through the we're covering the Red Hat 9 technologies, using Alma Linux 9 to do that. And again, without these free of charge clones, I would never have been able to write this. But and also Ubuntu up through version 22.04, which is the latest and greatest, most current long-term support version, and even throwing a little bit in there about SUSE when they do things that are a little bit quirky, right? Just to point all that out. But yeah, lots of stuff there, and it can also help you if you are studying for some sort of a Linux certification exam, such as the LPI Level 3 security exam. Not a complete guide for the exam, but there's a whole lot of stuff in here that is covered on the exam, so it can definitely help you out. And then the other book is Linux Service Management Made Easy with Systemd. And this is not a book about Systemd, this is the book about Systemd, because no one else has ever written one. And if you're a Linux administrator, you have to deal with any enterprise grade Linux systems that are based on Systemd, whether it be Red Hat, Ubuntu, SUSE, whatever. I got you covered here, okay? And if you've ever tried to find information about them before this book, then you've likely been very, very frustrated, because there's just not a lot of good information out there about Systemd. So this is the first ever book about Systemd, and so far the only one, and I cover the complete Systemd ecosystem here. So yeah, if you need to learn Systemd, I got you covered. I can help you out. But anyway, that's pretty much it for them. Purchase links for my 2 books will be in the video description below, as well as the links to the articles that I've covered. So anyway, that's it for now. Have a great day, and I'll see you later.